The Midnight Managerie. At midnight, the carnival's lights cast eerie shadows, twisting the night into something almost alive. Among the colorful tents, a peculiar one stood out, marked with a sign that read, "The Midnight Managerie." Inside, a collection of oddities and curiosities promised to enthrall visitors. Olivia and her friends, Jake and Mia, intrigued by the mysterious exhibit, decided to explore it. The tent was filled with cages, each containing bizarre and unsettling creatures. A two-headed snake, a three-eyed cat, and other unnatural beasts stared back at them, seemingly aware of their presence. As they moved deeper into the tent, they came across a cage covered in a heavy cloth. The sign above it read, "The Collector's Prize." Olivia, unable to resist her curiosity, pulled the cloth away. Inside was a small, pale figure, its eyes closed and skin almost translucent. It was a child, or at least it looked like one. The figure's eyes suddenly opened, revealing black, soulless pits. The tense atmosphere grew oppressive, the air thickening with a sense of dread. The child spoke, its voice a chilling whisper. "You shouldn't have come here." The lights flickered, and the creatures in the cages began to stir, their eyes now glowing with an unnatural light. Olivia, Jake, and Mia felt an invisible force pulling them toward the figure in the cage. The child grinned, revealing sharp, needle-like teeth. Desperate to escape, they ran towards the exit, but the tent seemed to stretch endlessly, the exit always just out of reach. The creatures broke free from their cages, chasing them with an unnatural speed. The tent's walls seemed to close in, the fabric turning into a thick, black fog. As the fog enveloped them, Olivia heard the child's voice echoing in her mind. "You are now part of the collection." Everything went black. The next morning, the carnival reopened, and the Midnight Managerie welcomed new visitors. Among the cages, new additions stood still, their eyes lifeless, yet full of terror. Olivia, Jake, and Mia were now part of the exhibit, forever trapped in the carnival's dark embrace. The Jester's Game. At the heart of the carnival stood the House of Mirrors, a labyrinthine structure that promised a thrilling experience. Mike, Jenna, and Leo decided to test their nerves and entered, eager for the challenge. As they wandered through the maze, their reflections twisted and contorted, creating a surreal and disorienting atmosphere. Deep inside, they stumbled upon a room with a single spotlight illuminating a small stage. A jester stood in the center, his costume vibrant with reds and blacks, his face painted in a perpetual grin. He bowed theatrically and introduced himself. "Welcome, dear guests, to the Jester's Game. A riddle, a puzzle, and perhaps a prize." The jester explained the rules. They had to solve his riddle to leave the room. If they failed, they would become part of the carnival forever. He then began. "I speak without a mouth and hear without ears. I have nobody, but I come alive with the wind. What am I?" Leo quickly answered, "An echo," and the jester clapped, pleased. "Very good," he said. But the game is not over. The room's walls began to shimmer, and the reflections in the mirrors became increasingly distorted, grotesque versions of themselves. The jester posed a tense silence. Mike stepped forward, offering himself to stay. The jester clapped again, the sound echoing eerily in the room. "A noble sacrifice," he mused. "But there's a twist." He snapped his fingers, and the mirrors shattered, revealing countless other trapped souls, each one a reflection of someone who had lost the game before. The room darkened, and the jester's voice boomed. "None of you were ever meant to leave." The friends screamed as they felt themselves being pulled into the mirrors, their bodies merging with the glass. The jester's laughter echoed in their ears as the light faded. The next day, The House of Mirrors was open for new guests, as visitors laughed and gasped at their reflections. The eyes in the mirrors watched with a silent, trapped horror, the Jester's Game continuing forever. The Carousel of Lost Souls. The carnival's centerpiece was an old, ornate carousel. Its once bright colors had faded, giving it a haunted, nostalgic air. Legend had it that the carousel was cursed, but that didn't deter Amber, Chris, and Kevin from riding it. As they climbed onto the horses, they noticed that each animal had an oddly lifelike expression, as if frozen in a moment of terror. The carousel started slowly, the music playing a haunting, old melody. As it picked up speed, the world around them blurred, and the carnival lights dimmed. Suddenly, the ride jerked, and the music distorted, turning into a cacophony of unsettling sounds. The horses began to move on their own, their eyes glowing with an eerie light. Amber felt a chill run down her spine as she realized they weren't alone. Shadows, dark and wispy, danced around them, whispering unintelligible words. The shadows started to take shape, becoming ghostly figures of carnival performers. A bearded lady, a strong man, and a contortionist. Their faces were twisted in pain, their eyes hollow and lifeless. They reached out towards the riders, their voices now clear. "Help us!" Chris tried to jump off, but an invisible force held him in place. Kevin screamed as his horse's head turned towards him, its eyes locking onto his. The horse's mouth opened, and a cold, misty breath enveloped him. He felt his energy draining, his vision blurring. Amber, panicked, tried to recall the stories she'd heard about the carousel. It was said that the ride was haunted by the souls of those who had died tragically in the carnival's past. They were trapped, unable to find peace, and the carousel fed off the energy of new victims to sustain itself. Desperate, she shouted, "We don't belong here. We're not like you." The ghostly figures paused, their expressions momentarily softening. One of them, a sad-eyed woman, pointed to the carousel center, a control panel. Amber reached for the lever and pulled it, hoping to stop the ride. The carousel slowed, the lights flickering back to life. The shadows began to dissipate, their whispers fading into the night. The ride came to a halt, and the force holding them vanished. They stumbled off, shaken but alive. As they looked back, the carousel stood silent, its horses staring blankly ahead. The legend had warned of the curse, but it hadn't mentioned the souls within could be freed, even if only temporarily. As the carnival continued, the carousel awaited its next riders, the echoes of lost souls still lingering, waiting for another chance at release. The Ringmaster's Revenge. The main attraction of the carnival was the big top, where the Ringmaster, a charismatic and enigmatic figure, hosted nightly shows. Alex, Mark, and Lisa were eager to experience the spectacle, unaware of the dark history behind the Ringmaster's performances. The show began with dazzling acts, acrobats defying gravity, fire breathers illuminating the night, and clowns performing death-defying stunts. The Ringmaster, dressed in a striking red and black outfit, commanded the stage with his booming voice and captivating presence. As the show reached its climax, the Ringmaster announced a special act, the Cabinet of Miracles. A large, ornately decorated cabinet was brought to the center of the ring. He explained that the cabinet could transport anyone to their deepest desires or greatest fears. Curious, the trio volunteered. The Ringmaster grinned, his eyes gleaming with an unsettling excitement. One by one, they stepped into the cabinet. The doors closed, and the audience watched in hushed anticipation. Inside, Alex found himself in a room filled with the whispers of long-forgotten dreams and ambitions. He saw his reflection in a mirror, but it wasn't him. It was an older version, eyes full of regret and sorrow. The reflection spoke, "This is your future if you never leave this place." Mark, on the other hand, found himself surrounded by darkness, cold and suffocating. He felt hands grabbing at him, pulling him down. The air grew thick with the stench of decay, and he realized he was standing in a graveyard, the ground beneath him shifting with the restless dead. Lisa experienced a different horror. She was in a lavish room, filled with treasures and riches, but the walls began to close in, the opulence turning into a prison. The air became thick with the scent of burning, and she saw flames licking the edges of her vision. The treasures were a trap, a lure into a fiery end. Outside, the audience watched as the cabinet began to shake violently. The ringmaster laughed, a sound devoid of humor. The audience, sensing something was wrong, grew uneasy. The cabinet's doors flung open, and a thick, dark mist poured out, enveloping the stage. The mist cleared to reveal the trio, but something had changed. Alex's hair had turned gray, and deep lines etched his face. Mark was covered in dirt and grime, eyes wide with terror. Lisa looked dazed, her clothes singed as if from fire. They stumbled out, disoriented and panicked. The ringmaster stepped forward, his grin widening. "Welcome back," he said, his voice dripping with malice. "You have seen the truths you hide from yourselves. The cabinet reveals what lies within." As the crowd murmured in confusion, the trio tried to leave, but the ringmaster raised a hand. The tense entrance vanished, replaced by solid walls. The audience gasped, realizing they were all trapped. The performers, once lively and entertaining, now stood like lifeless mannequins, eyes void of emotion. The ringmaster continued, "You see, this carnival is more than just entertainment. It feeds on the fears and desires of those who enter. And now you are all part of the show." The lights flickered, and the tent began to change. The colors faded, the seats turned to old, rotting wood, and the air grew cold. The carnival's true nature revealed itself. A twisted, cursed place, sustained by the souls of those who entered. The audience screamed, but there was no escape. The ringmaster's laughter echoed as the tense walls closed in, enveloping them in darkness. The carnival had claimed new performers, their souls now bound to the ringmaster's dark circus. As the night ended, the carnival lights dimmed, and the big top stood silent. The next day, the carnival would open again, ready to welcome new guests, oblivious to the fate of those before them. The ringmaster waited, knowing that the cycle would continue, the carnival's hunger never satisfied.